You are 9 years old. Your father has just been poisoned by a rival tribe. The killers ride away, and no one stops them. Your own clan looks at you, a child with no father and no power, and they abandon you on the steppe. They leave behind your mother, your brothers, and nothing else. No food, no protection, no future. Most children in that situation die. The Mongolian steppe in the 12th century was not a place that forgave weakness. Winters killed. Rival tribes raided. Wolves circled camps at night. A fatherless boy with no clan was not a threat. It wasn't even a story. He was just gone, like he never existed. That boy did not die. He adapted, and what he built from that abandonment became the largest contiguous land empire in the history of human species. His name was Temujin, but we all know him as Genghis Khan. And the thing that most history books miss is this. The empire was not built despite the defeats. It was built because of them. Every catastrophe Genghis Khan survived was not an interruption to his rise. It was the raw material of it. He was not a man who overcame his past. He was a man who weaponized it. To understand why, you have to understand the world he was born into. The Mongolian steppe of the 12th century was not a nation. It was not even a loose confederation. It was a fractured collection of competing tribes, constantly raiding each other, constantly shifting alliances, constantly betraying each other in the pursuit of horses, women, and slaves. There was no unity. There was no shared identity. There was only power, and whoever had it today might not have it tomorrow. Genghis Khan was born around 1162 into the Borjin clan. His father, Yesuge, was a minor chief, powerful enough to have enemies, not powerful enough to protect his family from them. When Yesuge was poisoned by the Tartars while returning from the arranging of Genghis Khan's betrothal, the clan immediately calculated that a widow and her children were a liability. They left. What happened next is one of the most studied episodes in the history of leadership psychology. Genghis Khan did not collapse. He did not surrender to the clans who had abandoned him. He survived on roots and fish and whatever his family could catch. He was captured and enslaved with a wooden collar around his neck and escaped. He was raided. He was betrayed by blood brothers. His wife, Bort, was kidnapped by the Merkit tribe shortly after their marriage. And here's where the story takes a turn that most people miss entirely. When Bort was taken, Genghis Khan did something that no minor clan leader on the steppe had ever done. He asked for help. Not from his own tribe, because he barely had one. He went to Togrul, the powerful leader of the Kurate tribe, who had been a blood brother of his father. He negotiated an alliance. He assembled a coalition force from multiple tribes, and he got his wife back. That moment seems small in the context of what came later, but psychologist Robert Cialdini at the Arizona State University spent decades studying the mechanisms of influence and coalition building. His research showed that the most effective leaders in conditions of scarcity and threat are not those who project the most dominance. They are those who understand reciprocity. Those who create webs of mutual obligation that outlast any single act of force. Genghis Khan understood this instinctively. He did not have the power to take what he needed, so he built networks of people who were obligated to help him. Every alliance was a transaction. Every favor was a debt, and debts on the steppe were paid. By the time Temujin was declared as Genghis Khan at the Great Kurultai gathering of 1206, he had unified all the Mongol tribes under a single banner. This had never been done before, and the way he did it violated every tradition the steppe had ever produced. The old system was tribal. Loyalty was to blood. You fought for your clan. You protected your kin. You distrusted everyone outside of your lineage. The system had kept the steppe fractured for centuries because it meant that alliances always broke along family lines. When the fighting stopped, tribes returned to their own. Unity was temporary. Division was structural. Genghis Khan destroyed that system. He recognized his army was not by tribal affiliation, but by units of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. He deliberately mixed men from different tribes into the same units. He made it so that your unit was your family now. The man sleeping beside you was your brother. The man you trained with was your kin. Your actual bloodline was secondary to your place in the decimal structure. This was not a military innovation. It was a social revolution. And the historian Timothy May at the University of North Georgia, who has spent his career studying Mongol military organization, describes it as one of the most sophisticated pieces of social engineering in pre-modern history. Genghis Khan did not build an army. He built a new kind of loyalty, one that was portable, one that did not dissolve when the campaign ended because it was not rooted in geography or blood. The second renovation was equally radical. In the armies of that era, leadership was inherited. You commanded because your father commanded. Your position was determined by your lineage. Genghis Khan abolished this. Promotion in the Mongol army was based entirely on merit and loyalty. A man born into a rival tribe who had once fought against Genghis Khan could rise to command 10,000 soldiers if he proved himself in the field. Jebe was one of Genghis Khan's greatest generals. He had once shot Genghis Khan's horse out from under him in battle. When he was captured, instead of executing him, Genghis Khan gave him command, because Jebe was skilled. Jebe became loyal once loyalty was offered, because Genghis Khan understood something that modern organizational psychologists have confirmed across hundreds of studies. What this study is called is cultures in organizations. Their research showed that the highest performing teams are not those built on fear or dominance, but those built on cultures where contribution is recognized and rewarded regardless of origin. Genghis Khan's meritocracy was not modern, but its logic was identical. Now consider what all of this looked like to armies that faced the Mongols in the field. The Mongols did not fight like anyone else on Earth. They were entirely cavalry. Every soldier was mounted. They could cover distances that no infantry-based army could match. They commuted across the battlefield with flags and drums. They used feigned retreats, drawing out enemy forces out of formation and then turning to destroy them. They used psychological warfare before a single arrow was fired, offering generous terms of surrender to cities that submitted and absolute destruction to those that resisted. And when they destroyed completely. Not out of random cruelty, out of calculated message sending. Every city that was annihilated sent a signal to every city ahead of it. The math was simple. Resistance costs everything. Submission costs almost nothing. This tragedy, which modern military historians now recognize as a sophisticated application of information warfare, was not invented in a palace or a war college. It was invented by a man who had spent his childhood being taught how powerlessness was the default condition of human existence. That lesson never left him. He just decided to make sure he was never on the wrong side of it again. By the time Genghis Khan died in 1227, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific coast of China to the Caspian Sea. His successors would extend it further into Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Korea, and Vietnam. The total territory would eventually encompass roughly 24 million square kilometers, approximately 4 times the size of the Roman Empire at its peak. But here is what the territory maps did not show you. The empire was built on a psychological foundation laid by a 9-year-old boy on a step, eating roots to survive, with a wooden collar around his neck, watching the people who were supposed to protect him ride away. That boy did not learn that the world was cruel and give up. He learned exactly how the world was cruel, mapped every mechanism of it, and then used those mechanisms to build something the world had never seen. Researchers who study what is called post-traumatic growth, the counterintuitive phenomenon where extreme adversity sometimes produces not damage, but expanded capacity, point to a specific set of conditions that determine which direction a person goes after catastrophe. The ones who grow, the research suggests, are those who find a way to make meaning from the event, who integrate it into a narrative of agency rather than victimhood, who ask not, why did this happen to me, but what can I do with this? Genghis Khan asked this question at 9 years old. He kept asking for it the rest of his life. Tonight, when something does not go your way, when a plan falls apart or a person lets you down, or the ground shifts under something you thought was stable, you will have the same choice every human being has always had in the face of loss. You can let it become something that happens to you, or you can let it become the first material of whatever comes next. The most dangerous army on earth was not built from strength. It was built from what was left after everything was taken. That is where Genghis Khan started. And for all the distance between his step and your life, the raw material is the same.